Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, we've lost another CEO in charge of cruise lines. That announcement came out yesterday. We also have the Consumer Protection Agency in the Bahamas are saying that their businesses are targeting tourists and ripping them off. And also a world-breaking day for Royal Caribbean, at least until their next ship does it. Well, Norwegian Cruise Line Chief Executive Officer, that's right, Frank Del Rio, who took over in 2015 for NCL, and ushered it through the pandemic and the shutdown and the restart, is stepping down. He's stepping down, but he will remain on as a senior advisor all the way through 2025, so he's not going away yet. But he will be stepping down on July 1st, and we will have Harry J. Sommer. He will take over as of July 1st as the new CEO. Well, I'll admit, Frank Del Rio was one of those guys that I cheered on a lot during the pandemic because he was very outspoken, criticizing the CDC for some of their practices and how a lot of the industry was being, picked on more than any other industry, right? Cruise ships were literally the last industry to be allowed to open in North America. The last one. You could go to a football game, you could go with thousands of people, you can go to a hockey game, you can go to a concert, you can go to a club, you can go to a bar, you can go anywhere, but you weren't allowed to go on a cruise ship because they were the epicenter of bad things, I guess. And he was very outspoken about that, and I appreciated that during the pandemic. I haven't been appreciating the moves they've been making lately on NCL. But I find that is also very interesting. It reminds me a lot of Bob Iger with Disney right now. Bob Iger brought in Chapek, and right when the time when they cutting jobs, cutting attractions, spending less money in a form of turmoil. Chapek came in and made all these changes, and now they ousted him and brought Bob Iger back. Now that all those those hard decisions were made. And now he can come in and be the shiny white knight. Oh, I'm going to give you this back, and I'm going to give you this back, and people will like him again. Well, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, changing the menus, charging more, raising prices, raising gratuities, cutting people's salaries, getting rid of employees, cutting their positions, getting rid of entertainment on board, raising gratuity prices. A lot of things happened, and now he's stepping down, and now we'll have a new CEO, and we can't blame him, even though he was part of the cruising, NCL. Every focus will be on the chief executive officer who has now stepped down, and he can come in and maybe he'll come in and say, you know what, we're going to do this now, and people will forget all the other changes that they made. I'm curious to see if that happens, but yeah, I'm kind of sad to see him go because, like I said, he's a very outspoken guy and he spoke his mind, and I appreciate that. Whether I agree with him or not, you're going to get an honest answer from him of how he thought. And I hope Harry, he seems like a nice guy too, very personable. I haven't had a lot of interaction with him yet, but he seems like a very easygoing, down-to-earth kind of guy, and I think he'll do well in the position as well. I hear only good things from people who have worked with him in the industry. So, yeah. Another CEO is stepping down in the cruising industry. Well, this cruise line has no one stepping down right now, but they just had a record-breaking day. That's right, they had the most ever passengers and crew, most people on a single ship crossing the Atlantic ever. 7,604 passengers. Now, I gotta clarify that because it's not a world record really. It's a world record during peacetime. That's right. Because during the war, and especially World War II, some of the large cruise liners at the time, they just piled and piled troops onto those ships. Some of them reaching 15,000 people on those ships. There was no place to lie down. There was no place to, they were just overcrowded. So because of necessity, right? You needed to get as many people at a time to that destination. So yeah, this is a peacetime thing, still an accomplishment. However, I'm curious if they ever do a transatlantic crossing with the new ship, with the Icon of the Seas. Because in base numbers, this one totaled, including every passenger on board and crew member, 7,604. Well, a full ship based on just double occupancy, which means if you have 2 kids on board or 1 kid on board or 3 people traveling the same cabin, those extra people are above what can be done, right? So if you have ships on, cabins on board that can handle, say 40% of your cabins can handle more than 2 people, well, there's a possibility that you can have 60% another person kind of thing on the ship. And the Icon of the Seas can hold 2,350 crew members as opposed to the 2,224 that the Oasis class ships hold. And their standard occupancy based on 2 people only is 5610. Which means that's 7,600 people. So without any extra people on board, they're only 6 short of the world record. So if they ever transport that ship back and forth across the Atlantic Ocean, I'm sure that one will be the next one to break the world record. Necessarily know if that's a great world record to break, having the most people on a ship in the sailing. In my mind, and probably most people's mind, it's not, wow, that's an amazing thing. It's, wow, that ship must have been crowded. Next, I have this big warning for people going to the Bahamas. But before I get there, let me just invite you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you want to keep up to date with everything going on in cruising, from maybe some places that are going to try and rip you off and some warnings, as well as world-breaking records, the new ships that are coming out, and what's happening maybe on your next cruise. We'll hope to do it in a lighthearted manner. Maybe just have a joke here or two and just talk about our favorite thing to do, cruising. I hope you'll join us. Hit the subscribe. Doesn't cost anything, and it really helps the channel out. I really would appreciate it. Okay. The Consumer Protection Commission Senior Supervisor, his name is Mr. Darling, he told media briefing and the Prime Minister's office in the Bahamas that people on Bay Street, in particular businesses on Bay Street in the Bahamas, a very popular shopping and tourist destination for cruise, especially cruise ships coming into port, are ripping off their passengers. Now what they're doing is, because especially if you're at a hotel and you're staying there 7 days, you go buy something at a store and you come back and then you check your credit card and you see a discrepancy, you can go back to that store and call the police and have a, et cetera, get involved in it, right? However, if you're on a cruise ship, you're usually gone the next day by the time you see that credit card charge on your statement. So they're targeting cruise ship passengers. And what people are finding out they're doing is they're going into a shop and they're going, well, we have this item, and they say, okay, I will buy that, say, for $1,000. And the people, well, that's terrific. And you know what? We're going to throw in this piece, and we're going to give you this as well. Here's a t-shirt, a bunch of little extra things that are $40 or something like that on a $1,000 charge, just to kind of distract the passenger as they're ringing in the card. And what ended up happening is they get back to the ship or they back home and they notice that their card wasn't charged $1,000, it was charged $10,000. In some cases, $15,000. And a lot of businesses have been identified by the tourism board. And now they're working with police, government officials, tourism boards, and the cruise lines themselves to find what they can do about these businesses. Because right now, there really hasn't been an investigation launched into these practices. So I wanted to give you guys a warning out there that, yeah, purchasing things on Bay Street, be careful. Make sure you see the receipt. Maybe don't use a credit card if at all possible. I know most people don't carry around $1,000 with you when you're walking around, because that would be a bad idea. That's a calling to get mugged, or pickpocketed. But there are alternatives. You can have a prepaid credit card, prepaid MasterCard, or prepaid Visa. You can put $1,000 on that card and use that card for shopping. Then the worst case scenario is you lost $1,000 and you're not charged $10,000. Now, also, these claims can be very hard to dispute because the business actually puts in that you bought a $10,000 item. Now you can say, no, I bought a $1,000 item, but now it's a your word against their word kind of thing. He said, she said, they said, we said, that kind of thing. No, it's a lot harder to dispute something along those lines. So I just want to give that heads up out there. There are ways around that, but be careful when you're shopping in destinations, especially for higher price items, that you check the receipt, make sure you're watching when they're entering in everything, and never just hand over your card and then sign something and walk away. Double check, because you might be that next person that gets home and find out that that watch you bought for $800 cost you $15,000. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.